Hello there. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning into part two of how I create $1 million offers. Quick recap. Yesterday in part one, we talked about if you were to take this entire help industry, coaching, consulting, course selling, being a health professional, being a legal professional, if you're trying to monetize the expert knowledge that you have, whether you're doing courses, coaching programs, done for you services, etc., that entire industry can be distilled down into one single concept. It really all comes down to this, and it is that this industry runs on having a story and then building offers around that story. In other words, if you don't have a story and you try to start building offers, you're going to be quickly commoditized. You're really building that house on some pretty faulty, sandy soil. It is not a sound strategy. It will lead to chaos, discouragement, frustration later on. Instead, you start with the story first, then you create your offer or suite of offers that help you to use that story to grow a business in this industry. The sort of metaphor that I like to use in thinking about this is think about all the people in the world, and you have accomplished something in your life. Maybe you have figured out how to sleep well. Well, there's probably hundreds of millions of people on this planet who would desperately like to figure out how to sleep well. And so to visualize this concept of you having figured something out, now turning around to help teach and instruct and help people with, it's like you're standing at the top of a ladder, and the name of that ladder is sleeping well. And most people are at the bottom of that ladder. And the reason we need to figure out what the story is, the reason we need to have a story is because the ladder itself is that story. It tells us how big the ladder is, how long the ladder is, how hard it is to climb up that ladder, what has to happen at each rung of the ladder. And all the people at the bottom of that ladder desperately want to climb up it. And that is your business in this industry, is helping people climb up that ladder. Maybe you figured out how to save your marriage. Well, guess what? There's millions and millions of people who would love to figure out how to save their marriage. They're at the bottom of the ladder. You're at the top of the ladder. Let's say that you have figured out how to help people reverse the symptoms of type 2 diabetes. There's lots of people at the bottom of that ladder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So that's what we talked about yesterday. We talked about that in depth. If you want to explore that more and you haven't heard that episode, I do recommend that you do. Listen to that. Today, what I want to help you to do is to find your story or create your story, and we'll talk about the difference between finding and creating, if it isn't obvious. So if you listened to yesterday and you were like, oh yeah, I exactly know what my story is, you may want to listen to this episode on 2x speed because there may be some things that will be helpful to you. But if you listen to yesterday's episode and you're like, well, I still don't really know what my story should be. I still don't know what the shape of my ladder should be. I still don't know what the name of my ladder should be. Who is even at the bottom of the ladder? And maybe I don't have anything to have a ladder for at all. And so I'm going to talk about exactly what you need to do to have a story. Because remember, you can't have an offer until you have a story. Okay, so how we're going to go about this is we're going to divide this process into two sort of subset of needs based off of where you are with your life and sort of progress as a human being. Depending on where you're at in life, you are either going to find your story or you're going to have to go create one. The people who are in the find camp, they're typically people who have some experience in life, in their profession. They have a lot of things that they have already done. Again, I would recommend that you listen to part one to look at the things that are unique. There's drama. dreams, things like that, things that you've accomplished in the past. That's actually a pretty easy group to be in because it's really a matter of just looking backwards and making sure that you're identifying the right things to be a story worth building a business around. So that's one camp, and we'll talk about them and what they need to do. And the other group of people is the create group, meaning you haven't maybe done anything quite yet because you're just early in whatever it is you're doing. It could be that you're younger, or it could be that you spent a lifetime in a career that you don't want anything to do with anymore. And so you are completely starting from scratch and you need to go create the story for this new career path that you're on. Or it could be like what I did. 10 years I was in kitchens. I cooked in some of the best kitchens in the world. And then due to life circumstances, bad choices I had made, I ended up homeless. And as a result, I needed a change. I needed a massive change from where I was. And so even though I had a decade of experience in some of the best restaurants in the world, I was starting over from scratch. And so I had to go create my stories. I didn't pull any from my cooking world, although in retrospect, maybe I could have. Maybe I could have gone down that road, but for whatever reason I didn't, and I decided to create. So maybe that's where you are at right now. And so we'll talk about both, okay? We'll talk about the find group and the create group. Even if you think you're in the create group right now, I would highly recommend that you listen to the find group training first because you might surprise yourself. I think a lot of people discount what they've done and underestimate how valuable what they have done can be to others. All right, so let's assume that you're in the find group. What should you do? How do you find the story? The first thing that I would recommend that you do, if you are so lucky as to have good people who love and care about you, who surround you, I would explain this concept to them. I mean, heck, just have them listen to part 1 and then ask them, what are some of the stories that you know about me that might be able to fit the bill? In other words, if they understand what we're talking about here, simply ask them, what stories do I have? Are there things that you've noticed about me? Can you remember something that maybe I'm downplaying or I've completely forgotten, or, I just need that new insight and perspective. I've never thought of it that way. That is always a very enlightening experience. It's better if you can ask more than one person. If I ask just my wife, she has an experience with me, knows me in a different way than, say, a friend might or a coworker might. And so having all of those different insights is just a great way to get a good look at what's going on. One of the things that might be enlightening is you realize maybe 2 or 3 people can't really come up with something. And as painful as that will feel, you have to understand, and please believe me, I've been doing this for 17 years. It is totally normal. It is actually extremely rare and unusual for someone to have accidentally or unintentionally created an amazing story that they could then go build a business off of. So even if you're in the find camp right now, and you go through this process and maybe even some of the other suggestions I'm about to give you, and you come away and you're like, I don't have anything, you are not broken. When I say it's incredibly rare, I'm talking about, again, because these stories, they don't happen to us. These aren't stories about, some random event. These are stories about things we have done on purpose to solve something that was troubling us or solve something that was troubling someone else. Most people live their entire lives without really having either the opportunity or the wherewithal or the awareness that that's even something that they can do. And I'm speaking from experience. I mean, I will give you the exact example from my life. When I was homeless, I would go to the public library, Multnomah County Library down in Portland, and I would just sit and watch YouTube all day. I mean, I was just numbing myself. And I somehow, to this day, I have no idea how I was able to stumble upon Jim Rohn. But there was a bunch of basically pirated Jim Rohn seminars on YouTube. And I remember watching one of the seminars, and he said that, you know, if you're worth $10 an hour, do you think someday you could be worth $12.50 an hour? It's like, of course, yeah. You know, you get a little raise here. That was very familiar to me in the kitchen world. Get a little raise here, a little raise here. And he says, well, if you could be worth $2.50 more an hour, what about $10 more an hour? What about $100 more? And he did this whole thing. I mean, he did it way more eloquently than I could. I had lived my entire life up to that point, and I did not even realize that was a thing. I did not even realize you could do that. I was so just not aware of what was possible. And what that taught me was that was possible, but it also taught me that we are all mostly unaware of the potential that is available to us. Even I right now in my business world, I have learned to operate with the assumption that I am completely unaware of how amazing this could be, or how much better I could be, or how much better things can get. So my point in saying that little sort of random tangent is for you to realize that it is incredibly rare to have, like I said, accidentally created a story. So please don't beat yourself up if you don't find it. That's what the creating part of this training is for. Most of the people that I've worked with over the course of my 17-year career, we went to creating, not finding. Right? Because it's so rare to do it on accident. Okay, but let's say that you've tried the example of asking your friends and your family, and remember, they're going to give you some feedback, and what you are looking for is you're looking for the story where you've done something for yourself or others that has drama, big dreams, and something that's very interesting. Okay? Because I'm sure you've accomplished a lot of stuff, but it's very difficult to build good offers around normal, boring things that everybody easily does, because there aren't that many people willing to pay for things that they're already figuring out and that it's pretty easy for them to figure out. Why would they need to pay someone if it's easy, they can do it themselves, right? And so that's important to understand, is that what we're really looking for is not just a bunch of compliments from the people who care about us, but we're trying to objectively listen for something that's impressive. If anyone uses the words like impressive, or I can't believe you were able to, or it was so amazing when you, or we still talk about that time that you, or you completely changed my life, or you completely changed as a person and it was so amazing. That's sort of the language that you're looking for in having those conversations. Now, the second thing that you can do in trying to find these stories is to journal. Now, I know everyone gives advice on journaling, and you should do it. In fact, I think anyone who thinks they're going to get into this business and survive more than 5 years who isn't journaling, I think is probably headed towards burnout. Thinking on paper. This isn't about writing in a diary. I'm not even suggesting that you have a formalized system. It's more about sitting down and just thinking things through on a sheet of paper. It's too fleeting in your head. The computer has too many distractions. Talking about it to other people, the words just go into the air, they dissipate. It never really becomes anything. You're not really thinking as much as emoting most of the time. So daily journaling is just, I recommend everybody do it. In this case, in this instance, when we talk about journaling, what we are trying to do is recall events in our life. And we're using, again, do not do this on a computer. Do not do this in a group form. Sit down, pen and paper, distraction free. You're going to have to be digging deep into your subconscious for some of these things. You know, if you're less than 25 years old, that's enough life between you and a thing that happens that you probably forgot some of the cool stuff you've done. I mean, it's always fun when I get to work with a client and they do this activity and they send me a message and they're like, I didn't even remember I did this. I had to check with someone to make sure that I wasn't misremembering this thing that I did. Now, the key here, because you are now only in your own mind, when you are doing this, it doesn't, you can do bullet points, you can just, stream of conscious, whatever works for you. What you have to do is you have to come at this with a beginner's mindset, meaning whatever story you're looking for, whatever cool thing you've done, you have to ask yourself, if I was a beginner, would I be impressed by this? Or even more important than that is really trying to put yourself back in the shoes of what happened before you solved whatever problem you solved. Because that will help you to determine whether this is even a good story or not. I'll give you an example. One of the most helpful things that has, and I don't know why this has happened to me or why my brain thought this way, but I have never lost the feelings and the thoughts that I experienced when I was homeless. And so I remember what it was like to make no money. I remember what it was like to be constantly afraid, to be just this slow burning feeling of stress that everything in life was permeated. It was like a dark cloud. A shadow touched everything. Even a good day wasn't really a good day. I remember those feelings. So when I look back now and I remember making my first dollar, that was a big ladder, because I remember what it was like to stay at the bottom of that ladder looking up. Now, compared to what I do now, right? My first client, I think, was like $200 or something. It was like nothing. Now, you even just heard me say it. That's nothing. Like that $200 these days, it's not even like I need $200 before 9:05 a.m., day of business, Monday morning, just to pay people in the company. But to putting myself in those shoes of that beginner, that $200, that first $200, it was such a big chasm. It seemed so impossible. It seemed like such a big, exciting new thing. And I'm pointing this out to you because if you don't remember that about whatever your story is, you might miss your story. See, if I couldn't close my eyes still and feel those awful feelings, and if I had completely lost touch with how big of a deal earning your first $200, getting your first client was, I would look at that event in my life, which was getting a client for $200, And I'd be like, oh, that's not a big enough deal. Like, it's not a story. I can't build a business around it. I can't do that. But you know what? In 2016, from 2016 to 2019, I made more than $7.6 million off of that exact story, helping people to do that exact thing. Go from never having gotten a client to getting a nice little client. It wasn't make tons and tons and tons of money, but it was a big deal based off of what it was like for the beginner compared to what was accomplished, right? It's the idea of going from 0 to 1. So this is something that you'll need to do if you're going to take the journal approach, because you have to kind of be aware of your own blinders. And, us human beings, we like to discount ourselves a lot. And so if you can get back into those beginner shoes, you might find more story potential than you had thought previously. You might be discounting yourself because you forgot what it was like before. You forgot how high the ladder was to climb, how hard it was, how challenging it was, what a big deal it was. And so I'd recommend that you really, really think about that as you go through journaling. And then, of course, there's the third option. So we've talked to people we know, we've done a lot of journaling. This is where having a coach helps, hiring someone to help. We have services here at Peaceful Profits which can help to, get some feedback, get someone to talk to, someone to talk things through with. That is incredibly valuable. Sometimes you have to be able to get out of your own head, and our loved ones are helpful, our friends are helpful, but sometimes you do need the help of a professional to extract this from what you are trying to wade through, because you're wading through hundreds of thousands, if not millions of bits of data in your brain. I mean, you are not a one-trick pony, right? You have lived a life. Even if you have only had one career and done one thing in that career, which is incredibly rare, but even if you have done that, within that career, you've done lots of different things. You've had, a different day every single day. And so there's just so much to wade through. And sometimes getting outside help is exactly what will lead to the breakthrough for you to find whatever you do. And I can say that as somebody who has hired that help many times and continues to hire that help for myself. And I can say that standing on the other side as somebody who helps other people do that, how often, like multiple times a week, if not multiple times per day, we get messages from people that we're helping with like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I wouldn't have been able to see that without help. The biggest difficulty with this story thing is just getting over your own blinders. I mean, that's the real challenge. Everything else is just living life, being awesome, doing cool things for yourself and others. The real quote unquote struggle, which doesn't have to be a struggle if you get help or, do some of these activities, but the real quote unquote struggle is just the blinders that we put on ourselves as human beings, the self-talk, the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're allowed to have and all of that kind of stuff. All right, so those are some ideas for finding. Right now, most people will go through that exercise and they'll feel like, I still don't know if I have anything, or they'll say, I can't really hire anyone right now. Okay, fine. Let's talk about creating. All right, so if you really can't come up with something after that, understand again, you're not alone. That's the majority of human beings. These stories don't just fall out of the sky. So we need to go create the story. Now, please understand, when I say create the story, I'm not saying go make up a story. We're not writing fiction here. I'm saying you need to go create the success that will make a good story so that you can have a cool ladder that people will want to climb up, so that you can have the story first and then build a bunch of offers around that story. Now, I know this is not going to be well received by a portion of people, because what I am suggesting is that you're going to have to go do some work. You're going to have to go do something awesome. And very few people are looking for that right now. It's a very strange time to be in this industry. This industry has always had this kind of problem where, my mentor says people are walking around with their umbilical cords in their hand looking to plug it in somewhere. It's always sort of had this problem. I think it's getting worse now. I don't exactly know why. I haven't figured it out why, but I think a lot of people right now are just sort of looking for the path of least resistance rather than the path of highest reward or the path of most meaning or the path of the biggest challenge so that I can become that much better of a person. It's like Jim Rohn says, you won't make $1 million until you become the kind of person who can attract $1 million. There's no hack. There's no secret. There's no trick. There's no magic loophole button. My friend and I were joking about all these people who are saying that if you just use ChatGPT and use this secret Amazon loophole, you'll make a ton of money. I mean, it's such baloney. It really is. It's absolute garbage. And it's important that somebody in this industry has to start saying this stuff more often. But what it also means is this. It means that you don't have to be blessed with some magic power. This isn't about who has inbuilt talent versus people who don't have inbuilt talent. That's not how this works at all. If you can't find something that you've already done, you're going to have to go create something that's story worthy to build offers around. But let me change the word have to get to can, to are able, to all you have to do is go create the story. In other words, you are completely in control of whether or not you have an incredible story to build an offer or offers around. Let me say that one more time, and I hope that it's sinking. You are in complete control of whether or not you have the ability to create unbelievable, easy to sell offers that will generate $1 million or more, that will have super high margin, that will be a breeze to sell, that will work with nearly any marketing strategy, because most marketing strategies work, and a great offer, all of them work. You have the ability to control that if you're willing to do something. Not learn another thing, not talk about another thing, not think about another thing, but go do something. Now, there are two places that you can go create stories. The first one we call opportunity inside, which is really, I'll talk about what that is, but we have opportunity inside, and that's the opportunities that exist right now. So you can go do this right now. And then you have what are called opportunity outside, which these are things that take a little bit more time and are really reserved for people who don't have any inside opportunities. So let me break this down and explain it to you. So the way to create using inside opportunities, or the things that can happen right now, is to take a look at what you have access to right now in your life and to go affect positive change, positive outcomes on whatever it is that you have in your life right now. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to become a relationship coach. Wonderful. That's your goal. And you're listening to, you're here at Peaceful Profits. Maybe you want to write a book about relationships, but you realize you don't really have you don't have a story. Wonderful. Don't wait to build a business and build an offer and try to come up with some offer out in the sphere of, just theory, basically. Go fix your marriage right now. You don't have to wait to fix somebody else's marriage, before you can come into this business. Go fix yours. And fix it in a way that is amazing. Fix it in a way that nobody else has fixed a marriage. Fix it in a way that when people hear your story, they're like, oh my gosh, that's what I want. And if you say, well, my marriage already is that, well, fantastic. How did you do that? Because see, that's where you go back to finding, right? If your marriage is already amazing, the best married people always talk about, wow, their marriage is amazing. Then you don't need to be here in the create phase. You've already created something that people want and desire. So you just need to go back to the, how did you do it? Why did you do it? Where was the drama? How did you what are the rungs in the ladder if somebody who doesn't have a good marriage can go up to having a great marriage? Here's another one. You've got a job. Okay. I'll put myself into shoes. The last time I was employed by somebody else, I was a cook. And let's say that I was still a cook and I was listening to this episode and I was like, I don't want to be a cook anymore. I want to go out and do something else. And let's say that I just went to the chef or maybe the business owner when I was the chef and offered to do something amazing for the company I'm already in. Let's say I work for this really cool restaurant, but they don't do any Facebook ads. What if I just ran their Facebook ads for them, got amazing results? Now guess what I have? I have $1 million story. I can say, when I was a cook and the restaurant wasn't doing any marketing, I was able to do A, B, C, D. And as a result, we got 600 customers come in the first week. My boss was like, holy cow, what are you doing? And I've now taken that and I'm helping other restaurant owners because I believe in the restaurant industry. And if you're a restaurant owner struggling if you're at the bottom of the ladder, you don't have what I have, which is the system for getting getting customers into your restaurant. Let me show you how to climb this ladder. Let me show you how to run the ad. And I need to put this into perspective here because likely I'll have to run those ads for free. If I've never run ads for someone and the business owner is like, look, you're a great cook, but I only know you as a cook. Are you sure you can do marketing? So like, yeah, I'll just do it for free. And I just need to create an amazing case study, testimonial, whatever. I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to build a piece of intellectual property because that's what these stories are. Now that you have that intellectual property, you can go to the market. You've done something amazing. You can ride that story for years. The One Book Millions method, which is a story about something we did in 2016. I built a business around it in 2019. That business is called Peaceful Profits, where we help people do what I did in 2016, which was I hated everything about all the marketing I was doing, so I just put my entire marketing into a book. Peaceful Profits launches in 2019, and we have been writing that multiple millions per year, that one story ever since then, and will continue to for many more years. I think people don't understand how powerful a good story is. And I can make all sorts of offers around the story. I mean, since 2019, we've launched all sorts of different offers. And I think that perspective, I hope it's helpful because it's hard to understand when you're going through it because you think, am I just doing something for marketing? No, you are laying the foundation of a business in this industry. This is what must occur first before you can build something great in this particular industry. I'm not saying this is true for e-commerce or true for even, publishing fiction, which is another company that I have. This is not how I would think about that company, but for this business in this industry, it absolutely is critical. So the question you have to ask yourself if you're feeling some resistance to this idea of going out and creating a success story is, are you really willing to not do this little bit of work to have a story that could last you years and years and years and be the foundation for a series of offers, that could last for who knows how long. Because if the answer is, yeah, you really don't want to go do something, like you're just like, no, I just need something to sell now and I'm not going to go do something. I don't think this is the business for you. You may want to consider doing something else. And again, I know a lot of other people aren't going to tell you that because they want you to buy their coaching programs or whatever. I just been around too long to not recognize how difficult of a time you'll have if you aren't willing to do this kind of work. So I'll give you another example. Let's say that you have had a job or something and you, maybe you didn't have, I'll try to put, maybe you've already been given some responsibility. Maybe you don't have to necessarily even go ask for new responsibility. Let's say that you're like the lead of a department or something. You're head of customer service. What an amazing opportunity to create crazy stories. Like amazing stories. If you want a crazy story, turn the department around. Make it the most profitable department in the company. Guess what your story is? I help companies turn around failing departments and make profitability, and I know how to do this, and I built this team. I mean, it would be endless, right? Or maybe maybe it's not just a company, maybe you're an educator, right? You work for elementary schools or something, and you work with people with individual education plans or something like that. And you have the opportunity to completely turn around how the school thinks about and works with children who have IEPs. Now you go out into the world and you say, hey, are you the parent of somebody who has an IEP? Does your children struggle in school? Guess what I figured out? Here's the story of how I figured it out. The school that I worked for, or maybe still work for, was so impressed by what I did that they have now adopted it into the entire school district. Wow. These are what we call inside opportunities. You're looking at something you're already engaged in. You don't need to go start 7 different side hustles to make this happen. Look at what's happening now in your life. Who do you have access to today that you can just go do the work? If you're jumping from kind of side hustle to side hustle, constantly looking for what the next thing is, what's likely happening is you're just avoiding the work. Because work is boring, it's tough, it's ugly, and it's difficult. To create these kinds of stories, you have to do something special, right? I mean, I don't know how else to speak it to you honestly. There are people who will tell you all sorts of things which are quote unquote shortcuts, but really what they're suggesting is that you build the foundation of your business on sand. Everything from outright lying to simply copying what other people are doing, and then you have trouble when it comes time to deliver because you don't know how to do it. I recommend you go do something special first. And this doesn't have to take months. Maybe you're already engaged in something that with a little bit of tweaking here and there would be the amazing story. You just need to add a little finesse on something, Maybe you're already 70% of the way there. If you did that extra little 30%, wow, the results would be amazing. They'd be noteworthy, interesting, drama, dreams, all that kind of stuff. Now, let me give you another example here because these all seem like really big and oh my gosh. What if you just taught your kid how to play the piano in 6 weeks? That's a story. And the story is, I don't have a music background. And I taught my kid how to play the piano in 6 weeks, and we play the piano together now, and it's really, really fun. And if you want to learn how to play piano in 6 weeks without any musical background whatsoever, I can absolutely help you because I did it for myself and my son or whatever. You've got a story. It's a great story. It's a beautiful story. People who want that for their kids, people who want that for themselves. they'll be interested in that. So those are examples of the insight opportunities. Hopefully something there got you kind of thinking, right? Let's say you already have patients in your physical therapy practice. What could you do above and beyond what everybody else does that could create an incredible story that you could then hang your hat on and build all these offers around and run a business for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, multiple 7 figures a year? That's what we're trying to do here. All right, next is, so we talked about the inside opportunities. Let's now talk about the outside opportunities. Now, this is going to take a little bit more time, and it's going to be even harder than what I just described. So obviously, finding something you've already done is great because you're like, okay, I already did that. I don't have to go do something else. It's already amazing. I'm so glad that I was awesome whenever I did that thing, because now I don't have to go figure out a whole bunch of other stuff. Then you have the inside opportunities, and that's like, okay, with what I have right in front of me, what can I go make amazing? The outside opportunities is that you are going out of what you have right now to go find some opportunity externally. Let me just explain it more simply. You're going to have to approach strangers and do something amazing for them. So that means you're going to have to reach out to them. You're likely not going to be able to charge a lot of money, if any. So you need to lower the barrier of entry. So let's say, for example, you're like, I want to, train you to get abs over the next 12 weeks. And they say, cool, like, tell me about who you are and what your business is. I'm kind of interested in that. And you're like, well, I've never actually done that for someone before. Okay. You can't then turn around and be like, so can you pay me $10,000? It just doesn't. I suppose, technically speaking, there's exceptions to every rule. And if you sent enough outreaches and got enough rejection and just pounded sand for like weeks and weeks and weeks, you might be able to get somebody to pay you 10 grand. What's more likely to happen, though, is that you're going to have to lower the barrier of entry. You might have to say something like, can we do it together? And then if it works, will you be willing to pay me at the end of 12 weeks? Or, I'll do this for you for free because I need a testimonial. Can you guarantee that you'll give me a testimonial when I get you the result? Something along those lines. But you can see this is a harder way of doing it for sure. Because if you don't already have the story, you're climbing uphill. And if you haven't been in business for a long time, I'll give you an example, because I know there's a lot of people who think, okay, well, I'm just going to go find the most successful multimillionaire I can possibly find, and I'm going to say, I'm going to work for you for free, and that person's just going to jump all over themselves, and they're going to bend over backwards to make my life easy. Unfortunately, that's not actually how it works, because the people who are the most successful have the least amount of time. Typically, that's not always the case, but they certainly have the least amount of time for things like mistakes or waiting for you to figure it out, because you're going to have to be figuring it out as you go, right? So somebody who is, let's say, busy or running a successful company or whatever they're doing, and you're like, hey, can I do this really cool? Can I take over all of your marketing for you? In your mind, you think, and you say, I'm not even going to charge you for it. In your mind, you think they would be so dumb to not take that. What you don't realize is they can't afford for the marketing to not be the best marketing, or to suddenly dip in quality, or, it has to perform at a certain level. That's how they got there, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm only mentioning this because the key to this is to not go into this with some kind of sense of entitlement. And that's going to be difficult, because from where you stand, you're like, I'm about to do this amazing thing. But from where most other people stand, they're like, well, how do I know you even can? Right? And most successful people in particular, they are willing to pay for competence and they have the resources to do so. So why would they get anything other than that? It's just a big waste of everybody's time. Now, it doesn't mean you don't reach out to successful people. It doesn't mean you don't try. But you just have to understand, I think I've given this advice before to people and they'll come back to me and be like, nobody's taking me up on it. This must not work. And it's not that it doesn't work. It's just that this is really hard. It's hard to convince a stranger of anything. It just is. And if you don't have that story, what are the strangers leaning on to trust? If anything, this can be a really eye-opening experience of how important having a story is. Right? And for some people, it may be the motivator they need to just really buckle down and do the work and create something amazing for themselves or for others. But that's pretty much it. Nothing here is really revolutionary, and that's kind of the point. If you are waiting for some secret trick or some secret something to suddenly unlock some hidden something, you have to get off that hamster wheel, because what you're waiting for is something that's not going to happen. And so then you'll just start jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, like telling yourself, I just haven't found the secret yet. And look, this industry, that's how they sell stuff. Right? It's how we all sell stuff in this industry. This is the thing that will unlock, et cetera, et cetera. But you just have to be careful as a consumer not to get too stuck in that loop. Because if you do get stuck in that loop, it can be difficult to get out of. The answer is almost always sit down and work. And in almost any situation. Now, there is one other thing that I want to mention here, because it would be easy to listen to this episode and say, oh, Mike doesn't believe in learning new things. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. Let's say, for example, that let's say, for example, that you do want to teach your kid how to play piano in 6 weeks. Okay, well, you got to go learn how to play the piano. Right? You have to up-level your skill. Your story is, how did you do that? What did you do? Let's say you want to turn a department around. You don't just sit there and I don't know how to turn a department around. Yeah, you got to go get books and you got to learn. And, this is it's like what Jim Rohn says. If you want to make $1 million, you have to become the person who can attract $1 million. By definition, it means you cannot continue to be the same person. You have to up-level skills. You have to up-level the way you think. To create an incredible story, you have to do incredible things. And so that means being better in some way. Maybe it's just an issue of you need courage. Maybe you have all the skills. You just need to make a decision that you're finally ready to finally step into who you ought to be. Maybe you need to stop telling yourself the story that you don't deserve as much success as everybody else. Maybe you need to take a look at yourself in the mirror, do some journaling, whatever it is you need to do. Please don't think that I am saying that you do this without assistance. When let's just take, for example, of going from homeless to getting my first client. I read every book there was. I watched every single YouTube video there was. I was not going to figure that out by myself. But then I did. And how I did is what I then helped other people to do as well. So you want to turn the department around, you want to run someone's Facebook ads, you want to fix your marriage, whatever it is that you're doing, absorb it all, learn it all, do whatever you have to do to make the most amazing story, because what you will have done in that process is figured it out. Whatever it is, that ladder. And your story is, see how I figured this out? Let me show you. Here's a course. Here's a coaching program where I'll walk you through how I figured it out. Here's a done-for-you service. I know how hard it was to do it all myself. You don't have to do it yourself anymore. I've figured it out, and I'm going to do it for you. That is this entire business. And the more amazing, whatever it is that you're helping people out to do, whatever more amazing that is, the more drama, the more dreams, the more uniqueness there is in it, the more easily you will be able to sell, and the higher margin you'll have because you'll be able to charge way more than everybody else because everybody else is just copying everybody else. So this is important work. I wish I had a different way to say it so that it would really sink in how important it is. In our next episode, part 3, we are going to talk about strategically creating offers once you have this story. Because oftentimes people take the story and they're like, I just need to sell something. Okay, but why? Why are you selling that thing? Why are you selling a $295 course instead of a $10,000 coaching program, instead of a continuity program, instead of a done-for-you service, instead of a this, instead of a... So we're going to use strategy to start building offers that match what you actually want your business to look like. And so that's going to be in part 3. I hope today has been helpful. My goal here is just to help bring some light into how to be as successful as possible in this industry. I fundamentally and truly believe that anybody can be successful in this industry, but not if they're not willing to do this part. Because again, what is this industry really? It's reaching down and helping people up. So if you're not at a place yourself where you've figured something out for yourself or for other people that you can help bring people up, you're missing the fundamental engine of what makes this work. And it will be it'll be struggle city for you for a very, very long time until the light bulbs come on and you say, you know what? I'm going to go do something awesome for someone, and then I'll turn around. And the great thing is, and here's the beautiful thing, once you figure out this skill and you just realize like, oh, okay, I can just go create awesome like stories, then 10 years down the road, guess what? You can just go do another one. Or 5 years down the road, you want to change niches in a year and a half? Maybe you're tired of doing Facebook marketing and you're like, actually, I do want to go be I want to teach people how to survive in the woods. Cool. Go do something cool by surviving in the woods and do some cool thing. And then that's your story. And now you can transition from running Facebook ads for restaurants to being the guy who teaches people how to do cool stuff in the woods. It is that simple. Not easy, but that simple. And having that flexibility and realizing that that's the engine that makes it work means you'll never really be in trouble financially or as in terms of the business, right? You'll always be able to go make something that generates income, that generates revenue, even when everything else is falling apart. Even if your financials are in terrible shape, even if you've made mistakes, and even you'll always just be able to wake up and say, okay, I'm going to go do something awesome, and then I'll make an offer and we'll run the offer and away we go. Okay, that's it. I think I've talked about this enough. I hope you'll join us for part 3 because that really is where the rubber's going to meet the road and we start thinking about turning these ideas, these happenings, this story into an offer. And that's going to be really, really important. If you would like help with anything that we have talked about today, we have, you guessed it, offers. We have coaching offers and courses and all sorts of done-for-you offers, a lot of things we have at Peaceful Profits that helps with exactly this kind of thing. So if you go to peacefulprofits.com/call and book a call with a member of our team, they can help to find an offer that will help you climb that next step on the ladder or completely go all the way to the top of the ladder, which is what I really like to do, is help people go all the way up. And we'll help you find a good fit for where you might be right now. Because again, you don't have to do this by yourself, but you do have to do it. It does have to get done. All right, that's it. I will see you tomorrow.